Welcome to Acoustics in the US, and my name is Corentin Manchard, and today is a good day because that's my 5th interview, so I'm very proud because my goal is to do 10 interviews. And today I'm pleased to welcome not only one people, but 2 people, which are Mrs. Felicia Doggett and Mr. Such Sansusi from Metropolitan Acoustics. So hello, Mrs. Felicia and Such.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, as usual, the interview will be divided into 4 parts. The first one with a general presentation of the company, and the second part more about you, Mrs. Doggett, and the third part about specialization, sorry, and the fourth part about the perspectives. So, as usual, I always start with the first one. Can you just introduce your company to those who don't know it, please?
The company is Metropolitan Acoustics, and we're located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've been here since 1990.
Okay, thank you very much. So you said you are I checked on your website and I saw that you are the founder. So can you just tell us a little more about it? Why did you choose to found your own company? And why didn't you want to work in acoustics as just a consultant? Why did you want to found your company, actually? Just simple.
Yes, I was, actually it started in college. I majored originally in music, but I always liked math and physics. So when I was in college, I had heard about an acoustics program that was set up, and I went to University of Delaware. It's in Newark, Delaware. And it was kind of a write your own major type of thing at that point. That was back in the 1980s, so it was quite a while ago. And I pursued that degree. And when I graduated, I was fortunate enough to work at an acoustical consulting firm in Washington, D.C. called Polysonics. And after about 4 or 5 years, moved to Philadelphia and realized that there was no acoustical consulting companies here in the city or in the area. So that's when I decided in 1990 to start Metropolitan Acoustics. So I just started working out of my house originally and doing consulting for smaller projects, and now the company's grown to about, we're 9 or 10 people right now, and we do both acoustical and audio-visual design and consulting work.
Okay, thank you for all this information. So you said on the company you are the founder, and are you still a consultant within a company? What is your? Can you just describe your role within the company outside of being the founder?
Oh yes, I'm still very active in the company. I work full time. I do consulting on projects as well as everything else, like some of the marketing, business development, some administrative work. So basically everything.
Okay, like every founder, you do everything in your company, I suppose.
Right, exactly. But now I have a lot of people helping me, so it's not so bad. But we are very busy. That's why we brought Mr. Sansushi on. He started full-time here at the end of August, but he's been a consultant with us for close to 2 years, right? Yeah. We've known each other for about 5 years probably now. So we met through the Acoustical Society of America.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So just talking about Mr. Sansusi, I have a question for both of you, which is just simply, why did you choose acoustics? Why did you choose to work in acoustics? You said you are a musician, so maybe it was because of this. Can you just tell us a little more about it?
Let's see, why did I choose it? It was just, I guess because it was a good combination of like some of the musical end of things and also the math and physics side of things. It seemed like a good combination of the two, and you know, I never regret going into acoustics because it was definitely my calling. I really like doing it. Honestly, most of it's a lot of noise control work, 90% of it, and so just having a knack for doing noise control as well as room acoustics helps a lot. So What about you, Such? Why did
Well,
you get into it?
I studied music as well. I studied speech intelligibility and psychoacoustics. I studied electronics. So the combination of all of those, and also wanted to localize at that time in France, because I was building in the 80s electronic gear for recording studios and designing recording studios. But everyone told me if I wanted to do that as a career, I would have to move my operation to Asia, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to stay in France. So back in the 80s, I developed a design build firm in France and built lots and lots and lots of acoustical projects, mostly recording studios, cinemas, rehearsal halls, theaters, recital halls, and occasionally just noise control for specific situations. And but it was a natural, I think, evolution parallel to being passionate about math and music.
Okay, so for both of us, it's like a great combination of being passionate about science, math, and physics, sorry, and in music in general. I think I quite agree with this. Personally, in my engineering school, I'm always passionate about math and different math equations and physics in general, but I still keep interest in physics, and I still have a band to play in some with some friends and etc. So I think it's important. And I just have another question, just for Mr. Sansusi, if you can still hear me, is why did you move to the US, and what are the differences between France and in the
The
US?
work of the acoustician is exactly the same. The requirements from the acoustical community is exactly the same, and the architects are the interaction with architects is exactly the same. Right now in France, economically, the construction industry is not very healthy. Banks are not lending money, so people are not building or renovating. So that will come around, but who knows when. Right now, as far as I understand, unemployment in the construction and the building trades is over 30% in France. On the other hand, the United States has come out of the recession and is building wildly, so there's lots and lots to do over here.
Yeah, the economy here is just tremendous right now. It seems like banks are lending a lot of money for people to build buildings. We're working on right now very large projects. Like some of them are probably over $1 billion US dollars
Wow.
for the whole construction project. So there's a lot of development going on in corporate and also in multifamily housing, like apartments and condominium buildings, particularly even in the Philadelphia area and across the U.S. So the economy here is pretty much the opposite of what it is in France right now. It's an upswing.
Yes, I was just interviewing someone previously, and he was saying the same thing about companies that want to renovate, for example, the recording studios. They are starting again to put money into renovating their recording studios, and I'm not sure it's the same case in France. So that's what I wanted to show, the differences between these two countries, and that's one of the reasons why I want to move to the US, because apparently it seems like there are more opportunities for me. Actually, I think in this country, so that's why I'm doing all of this work. Actually.
Yeah, and that's I want to add that's why Such is here, because he really didn't have that much work over in France, although he's a very well respected acoustician over there and has tons of experience. It's just very difficult. So through our relationship, and because we're so busy, we needed to hire somebody, so he came over and is working here full time. So.
Okay, yes, I checked on your website and I saw that both of you have a really like never-ending list of projects that you conducted, and some are very prestigious. So, talking about the projects you conducted, it's once again a question for both of you. What would be the project you're the most proud of so far? Well, what project do you pick? Sorry, would you pick up?
A hard question.
They're all important.
It's
Everyone, big ones and small ones. I think, but the one comment I like is when people say the result is much better than I expected.
It is nice. I mean, even like I'll walk into, all right, remember you just went to that Woodbridge High School.
Yep.
We did a project. It was a high school project, but it was a new theater, band, and choral rehearsal rooms. And it just comes to mind because it's very recent. But I walked into the space, and the mechanical systems were so quiet, and we actually measured sound levels lower than what we designed to. And you walk into a space like that, and it's like, wow, that really worked. Like sometimes even now I get kind of amazed. It's like, wow, that worked. Like, because you do it all on paper and you do all your calculations, but then the satisfaction when you walk into a space and it's like, wow, that sounds great. That's when you really it all comes to fruition for you. But I guess like some of the bigger, come on, you got to have one project that comes to mind that you're really proud of.
Well, that was particularly fun was in the Chateau Laborie in Limoges for a recital hall. We had to, in a square stone barn, we had to make a recital hall, so that's ridiculously contradictory. But we did to what we wanted. They came out pretty well. It was, they use it now for recording classical music. And so that was a fun project.
I mean, there's some, like, I can think of right now, there's theaters, there's two of them, they're called the World Cafe Live Theaters, and one's in Philadelphia and one's in Wilmington, Delaware. One was fit out of an old warehouse, one was fit out of an old theater, an old historic theater, the one in Wilmington, and they're totally different. They're used for the same thing. They're used for amplified music. So, the challenge again is to get these spaces that were highly reverberant, good for amplified music. So, but yet still sound good if somebody wants to play acoustic guitar. Those, I guess they're satisfying because I hear comments all the time like, oh yeah, I went there and it sounds great in there. So I get a lot of feedback for those type of public theaters that people go to all the time. But even ones like that aren't public, like where you're trying to solve noise control problems, and those can be more tricky than anything else. Where, for example, you have a mechanical noise. All right, I'll give you one example, very unglamorous, but it was a building in Philadelphia that was 6 stories high, and on the 6th floor there was it was the mechanical penthouse. I don't know if you know what that is, but all the mechanical and electrical equipment was on the 6th floor, and they were trying to lease the 5th floor. And but the problem was all you heard all over the 5th floor was the hum of 4 transformers that were sitting directly on the 6th floor slab. So there was no way to get rid of it, and the only way to do it was to we lifted the transformers, which was huge. Lifted the transformers, put in isolators as thin as possible, disconnected the transformers from the switchgear, and it was $5,000 in materials, $125,000 in labor, and then I was like, oh my God, I hope this works. But anyway, it worked perfectly. You went back into the space and you couldn't hear anything underneath. But those are the types of things, just like, wow, that, you do all the calculations and you figure out what the deflection of the material is and what you need to, what the minimal amount you need is to isolate it, and you go ahead and, recommend it, and somebody else does all the work, and you're thinking, like, this better work, and then it does. So those are the things that, just sometimes I'm like, okay, that, the math really works.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. In the previous interview, we were talking about empirical experience, which was better than just equations, and I think that's true because when you can really feel and in that case hear here you work actually, and here when it exceeds what you wanted to do, it's very, I mean, it gives a self confidence to conduct the next project and the next one and the next one. So I think I understand what you mean. It's very nice feeling.
Yeah, it's very satisfying in the end because you can actually see what you've done. I like that about this field. You know, you can see an end result and hear it, you know. So.
Yes.
And we also see everything through construction, so we'll go on to the construct after we do the design, go on while they're building it, so you can make sure that they're doing things properly, and then of course once everything's done, then you can go and hear and see the end result.
Okay. Okay, so that's very interesting to talk about all of these projects. And I want to move on to the second part of the interview, which is more about you, Mrs. Doggett, and maybe you, Mr. Susi, if you want to add something. In general, what qualities would people need to do your job? What would you pick some qualities if someone comes in your office tomorrow and wants to do your job? What does he need to know to do? What would you say?
Well, we hire a lot of entry-level people, so the type of qualities we're looking for entry level, you at least would have to have a minimum bachelor's degree in some kind of field, like either acoustics, engineering, physics, something like that. A couple people here do have master's degrees. So that's one thing that we look for, obviously, as a college education. Another thing that's also really I guess makes a candidate stand out among others is some kind of internship for in the field of acoustics or audiovisual design, whatever. So where during their college career they've worked somewhere before, so have a background in the profession. So you're not just like they're not coming into a job cold. They actually have worked at another company before and kind of know what to expect. Another is a proficiency in computer-aided design, CAD programs, and 3D modeling programs, because sometimes there's a large learning curve there, so a knowledge of those type of programs is a plus. And just like another thing, it's a little hard to assess when you're interviewing somebody, but it's like somebody who's organized, because we do a lot of you will likely be doing like a lot of projects at one time, so you might be working on 5 or 10 projects at once, so organization, like multitasking, is very important. Also just a good professional attitude, somebody who comes in willing to work every day and doesn't mess around and just somebody who's like, everybody in our office right now really gets along with everybody else. So just like an easygoing personality, nobody's really, we all, we're friends, we go out and, sometimes after work. And so, it's a nice, somebody who's, has a personality that I think would, easygoing and would fit into the office atmosphere. So those are the types of things we look for in an entry-level person. Now, I don't know if somebody would walk in the door that could do like my job right now, but Such, you need a good mix of younger and then older, more experienced people. So we have that. You can't just hire all younger entry-level type people because who are they gonna? It's best to have people with experience as well. So you've got a good mix in there.
Okay. Okay, so that's very interesting to hear all of these qualities people need to have. And I'm sure all of the people who wants to work in acoustics understand a little more what they need to do. My next question would be, can you just describe your typical day? When do you start? What do you do? Do you work at home, in your office? What do you do? When? Is there a typical pattern for your days in the office? I don't know. Can you tell me?
Yeah, there's a typical pattern, although like I know Such has his working style is a little different than probably some of the other ones, but like for the office, for like my working day, and usually everybody else here, for example, I'll usually get in about 8 o'clock in the morning, check on emails, work on projects. I mean, I don't do too many projects. I do some myself, but more so I will assist the other consultants on what they're working on, kind of lead the project, take the project management role, and but not do like a whole lot of calculations right now myself. Write proposals. We write a lot of proposals. We have, speaking of the economy, we have like people every day, literally, and I'm not joking, email us like 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 times a day for new work. So we have to write proposals to do that work, to saying this is what we're going to do, this is our fee. So that takes a lot of time. We have an office manager or business manager. She usually drafts most of those and then hands it off to me or Such or Seth Harrison, who's another one of our senior people here. So yeah, or one of the AV people if it's an AV project. So there's a lot of work going on, and just on the administrative end, writing proposals for jobs. Of course, we don't get them all, but we get a lot of them. So the working day continues on like that. A lot of emails, phone calls, going to meetings for projects, and then also going and doing acoustical testing. We do that on site. We have a variety of test equipment. Actually, we're looking to add to that right now. We kind of have, now that we have more people, we have a problem with overbooking our equipment. So we're going to have another sound level meter to the menagerie of meters we have. Going to construction sites, like I said, checking on projects. I mean, a lot of times we're out of the office a lot, depending, on how many site visits we have going on and measurements and meetings. So it's kind of hard to balance. Like sometimes you'll have a lot of meetings and then you also have to get office work done. So sometimes that's a little difficult. That was one of the reasons actually we hired or had Such come here full time, was because there was no more work that we could do. I mean, there was not enough people to go out onto site and do the measurements and meetings that we needed. So we just needed extra bodies to do that.
Okay, yes. I see.
I'll usually leave, if I come in at 8, I'll leave at, I don't know, 5 or 5:30, something like that. Such kind of has a little bit of a less regimented work style. I'll also, like at night, if I have to, I'll like answer emails and stuff like that at home, or catch up on some paperwork type of stuff. But that'll usually be from home. So Such has a little different style.
Well, in France, I used to work for France from about 11 in the morning until 6 or 7 at night, and then I would work from 9 at night until 2 in the morning for North America, and so do 2 shifts.
Yeah.
I had a lot of work. So afternoons in France would be Europe, and nights would be North America.
Okay, wow.
Well, actually, no. Now I start at 7:30, and I work until 5:30 or 6, and then I come back sometimes in the evening and do 8 until 10.
Well, that's because your internet isn't working yet at home, right? Yeah, once you get the internet working at home, you can work. We can access our server remotely, so
yeah.
You don't actually have to be here to access our server.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Okay, wow. So it's like it's like a very busy days. I can see with what you're saying, like starting very early in the morning. You said you leave at like 5:30, but you still have some work, and sometimes you work from your home. That's right?
Yeah. Well, at night, yeah. If I have to answer emails that I haven't gotten to during the day, I'll like at night or something, I'll log on with my iPad and answer emails. But I don't do a whole lot of work from home at night. More just like correspondence.
Okay, yes. Okay, I can see the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question is a little related to the previous one. It's about how do you conduct a project from the beginning to the end? You said you receive a lot of inquiries from people. So how does it start and when does it end and what do you do between? Can you just tell us like the general steps?
Sure. Well, we get inquiries, we write proposals. If that gets accepted, then, well, it depends on what the project is. Of course, sometimes it requires going and doing acoustical testing. Sometimes you can do everything in the office without, because the building's not there, for example, if it's just something in design. So the architects will email us the drawing files, either CAD or PDF, and we can work off of that, do all our calculations, maybe go to meetings to discuss the project progress as we get into it and different recommendations that we're considering, so to get their feedback before making our final recommendations. And then the final product is actually, on the acoustical side, is a report detailing all our recommendations with some CAD drawings or sketches to go along with it. That has to actually get incorporated into the architectural and mechanical design packages that would go out to bid. On the audiovisual side, we actually produce a set of audiovisual drawing set, a bid set, and specifications, written specs. So that actually is a standalone set that goes out to bid with the entire drawing package. So, and that's basically, the progress, and then you can get into construction administration, where once the project starts getting built, then we will review submittals, which are like the products that the contractor wants to use. So we have to compare that with what we specified and either accept it or reject it, and then and do that until the submittal review process is completed, and then then we'll go on site to do construction site inspections, like I was mentioning, to see if the things are getting installed or built the way we specified. And then, usually one final checkout, or sometimes we'll do acoustical testing in there to see how it came out to be against what we had predicted it would be. So that's the whole process.
Okay, and just to remind us, I think you already said it in the beginning of the interview, but can you just tell us how many you are in the company? Because you said you have like a lot of work and some projects that last 1 year or more. How many people are you in the company working in acoustical projects, not doing administrative work, but really on projects? How many people?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we have 6 people doing acoustics. We have 2 in audiovisual, and we have 1 full-time administrative person. So 9 total. Yeah.
Okay, and among these 6 people and 2 from AE, do they work sometimes together, or are they always alone on their projects, or does it depend on the projects maybe?
Oh, no, sometimes we're working on the same projects. Yeah, more often than not, we are. Sometimes it is just an audiovisual project, and there will be no interaction with the acoustical piece of it. But a lot of times, yeah, the projects, we get the whole thing. We get the audiovisual and the acoustical pieces of it. Speaking about the length of projects, it could be very short. It could take us like something like a week to do, up to, projects like the big Comcast Center project we're working on. That will be under design for probably 2 years, and then like 3 years under construction. So that's a very long-term project. So we do all sorts of sizes of projects here. We actually kind of cut off like the really small ones. We have a minimum fee for our work because we just can't do all of the small ones. So we said $2,000 and up is all we can do. We don't do anything under like a $2,000 fee right now. So.
Okay, yes. I think that's a good way to like sort the projects you want to do and those you don't want to do, I assume.
Yeah, because we gotta, Sometimes we'll get calls from homeowners, people who own
Okay.
their own houses, and it's like, oh yeah, I have, like my neighbor's dog is barking, and can you come over for a couple hours? And we're like, no, we can't do that.
Okay, yes, I can see that's not the same scale at all. So if you don't have anything to add, I would just move on to the third part, which is more about your specialization in the company. Maybe you are specialized in something. I was talking with Mr. Lenz previously about acoustics in a recording studio. So maybe you are specialized in one project. So if you have an example, can you just talk a little more about it and talk about the initial missions, the different challenges, and the final results, if they were the same results than you predicted or different ones, maybe? Just can you tell us about it, maybe?
Well, we don't really specialize in any type of project. I'll tell you what our major markets are. We do a lot of corporate work, so work for big companies that are moving into office buildings. So we do a
Okay.
lot of speech privacy, um, noise control, sound masking system design, and audio-visual design for those types of spaces. We do a lot of multifamily or mixed-use work, so that's where you're building condo or apartment buildings, and so you have to have separation, obviously, from all the units from each other, and also from the mechanical systems from those living units. But also, a lot of times there might be like bars or restaurants or retail on the ground floors with the living units above that. So acoustical separation is key there. We do a lot of higher education work. So we do a lot of buildings for universities, whether that's like educational buildings or sometimes they're dormitory type buildings, living buildings. We do hospitality, so that's like hotels, same kind of separation issues, but then you also have like areas where a lot of people will be in, like ballrooms, meeting rooms, and restaurants where you want to keep the sound levels down, where you don't want things to build up to really high
Yes, of course, yes.
levels. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's all on like the hospitality side. And what else do we do a lot of work in? Some K through 12 work. So we do a lot of that's kindergarten through high school.
Oh, okay, yes. Hmm.
K through 12. Yeah, we do a lot of schools in that because a lot of the schools have they're going for green building design in LEED. Are you familiar with LEED?
Yes, a little. I just checked on your website that you can do some work related to this, but if you can tell us a little more, because I know a little, but maybe the other people who will watch the video won't. So
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, LEED is it stands for Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design, and
Okay.
it's a green building design where it actually has you can get points for different sustainable elements in a building, for example, like stormwater management, energy efficiency, daylighting, everything from like public transportation and things like that. But part of it is also for LEED. There's a specific one called LEED for schools, and that actually has prerequisites for acoustical design of core learning spaces, which is actually one of Such's areas of expertise. He did a lot of research, or does a lot of research in speech intelligibility, particularly in classrooms. So he can elaborate on that a little bit. But LEED has requirements for background sound levels and reverberation time in classrooms. So you have to meet certain criteria so that students can hear what the teacher's saying. I mean, it seems common sense, but you'd be surprised how people were designing classrooms so they couldn't hear, the students couldn't hear. So that's also one of our big markets, and maybe we can elaborate a little bit on designing it and then going and like measuring the results or the research. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at the CNRS in Allsafe from 2002 to 2008, studying classrooms for normal and hearing impaired students of all ages. And we were developing or comparing first all the available systems for enhancement of speech between the teacher and the seated audience. And it was the results of that. We actually developed 3D modeling software at Superlek that did a very good job of looking at the true impact of message and what we call working memory or short-term memory. So someone who's sitting listening, how much of what was actually said do they remember? Because that's the key descriptor of what we looked at as speech intelligibility. So among our conclusions, one was that the index for speech intelligibility should have 5 different levels. And among them, there's warning systems. If you're in a building and you hear a voice that tells you to evacuate quickly, that's a type of speech intelligibility. General public, like at a wedding when someone's talking, that's what we call just general speech intelligibility. And as the difficulty of the message increases, so should the index. So what I'm talking about now is something that will appear soon as ASTM and ESO specification for new levels of assessment of speech intelligibility. In any case, within what we do for classrooms, we look pretty carefully at the conditions of the seated audience and the positions and the conditions of the teacher and accessory systems like sound systems or whatever. And it's going to change quite a bit. In the next 10 years, you're going to see a whole new way of looking at classrooms. So that's one of the things we're busy involved in.
Yes, I remember in my school someone worked on the speech intelligibility, and she gave the example of, for example, like a stadium. If there is like a fire somewhere and people have to evacuate the stadium, they have to work on the speech intelligibility because there are like thousands of people. So they need, I mean, those who build the stadium need to be sure that everybody will leave the stadium as soon as possible, just to avoid injuries or casualties. So yeah, I think it's very important to work on this. I just wanted to come back on what you said about condos and etc. How do you do when you want to isolate every condo one from another? Which techniques do you use? What do you do?
Well, there's actually in the U.S. there's a standard called the IBC. Well, it might be. It's called the International Building Code, so maybe it's international. I'm not 100% sure about that. But they actually have minimum requirements in the IBC for sound transmission between, for airborne and impact sound transmission between adjacent dwelling units and between dwelling units and common areas. So, for example, you have to design walls to meet a minimum STC rating, that's sound transmission class, of 50. Although 50 between dwelling units is not very good, so we usually go higher than that depending on the how much people pay for it. You know, we call it the luxury level of the units. So the more people pay, the less they want to hear their neighbors. And also the other requirement is, I mentioned impact sound transmission. So that's like footfall noise from people walking above your head in the unit upstairs. So there's minimum requirements for that as well. And that's called the IIC, the Impact Insulation Class. So you have the STC and then the IIC. And those are the two things that we generally look at, other than like isolating mechanical systems, but between dwelling units. Those are the two things that you need to be concerned with.
Okay, so, and, oh yes, maybe.
And it's exactly the same type of standard. It's
what is it called?
AFNOR is the
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
equivalent of AST.
Okay.
And everything is very, very similar.
Do they have the IBC in France? Oh, they do. Okay, that's international.
They refer to it, but in France they have to write everything again themselves. So
of course.
But acoustic.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Okay, yes. And just to finish on this point, do you use certain materials for this, or some combination of materials between units, like you said? Because, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
how do we reduce the sound transmission, actually?
Well, through walls, I mean, generally it's metal studs and gypsum board and added fiberglass insulation mineral wool. So usually it's always some kind of gypsum board type of construction. For the floors, depending on how high the building is, generally it could be like concrete or
Mhm.
concrete on a metal corrugated metal deck. Or rarely we work on, but sometimes they have wood frame construction. So that's like wood timber joists with plywood on top, and usually that's you get a lot better sound transmission isolation out of concrete than you do wood frame construction. So it's a little more difficult working with wood constructions as compared to concrete constructions.
Okay, yes.
But
It's,
and
it's
then when you need
very,
there's also like resilient. I should mention that for impact sound transmission, there's like a rubber mat type of thing or something similar that you need to use underneath your floor to get that impact cushioning, so
okay.
you get less impact sound down.
Okay, it's funny to see the difference with the previous interview, sorry, because in the previous one, Mr. Lenz, which was specialized in recording studios, mostly said he mostly works with wood, and you said you don't. So it's very interesting to see that depending on the project, we use different materials. So I think
Well,
that's
yeah.
what makes every project unique.
Yeah, wood is generally used in like you can't really build a building that's more than, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 stories high using wood construction. So any of the high-rise buildings are all going to be concrete uh, metal deck or steel joists and things like that. So that's why we don't usually do the smaller ones. If we're working on one, it's usually one of the high-rise condominiums. So.
Okay. Okay, very interesting. All of this, I mean, things about acoustics. And we move on to the last part of the interview, which are the perspectives. And my first question is, what are your short-term projects? What's on your desk right now, Mr. Doggett and Mr. Sansusi? What will be on your desk in the next 10 months and in the next year, for example? What are your current projects and your short-term projects in general?
Uh, got quite a few short-term projects. Let's see. We're working on right now a theater that, well, we actually didn't work on the theater, but they threw up 3 large mechanical units on the roof. And this is something I haven't even mentioned as far as what we do. So they're outside, they're on the roof, and then there's apartments or condominiums literally right next door. So all this noise is blasting to the condominiums. So I was there last week. They had implemented some items. I was up on the roof taking sound measurements. So they need to. There's what we call in the States, and I'm sure they have it over in Europe, is noise ordinances.
Yeah.
So that you cannot exceed a certain decibel level at close by residential properties from whatever it is that you put on your roof or exterior equipment. So we do a lot of that type of work too. You were down in New Jersey doing something like that just the other day. There was an outdoor chiller that Such was measuring. So the chiller was out,
Okay.
and it was just blasting noise to
Okay,
every.
yes. Mm-hmm.
So you can't just like blast noise to anybody who you want to, who's around you. But that's one of them. Another short-term project. They were building a office fit-out. It was an office project, but there was a hydraulic elevator room for the elevator equipment, and it was not isolated properly, so you could hear every time the elevator ran, you could hear this like really loud humming or buzzing. So we have to isolate that. Trying to think what other short-term ones are on my desk right now.
Generator, you can talk about that.
Oh yeah, emergency generators. We do a lot of that. Those are noisy projects or noisy pieces of equipment. They're always like outside, and people when they run complain about them. A lot of the short-term ones are like kind of noise related. There's a lot of sound transmission ones, like we have a conference room and we can hear people outside, or people outside can hear what we're saying, and so we go in. And most of the short-term ones will go out. We're doing measurements, and then we're designing recommendations to try and fix whatever their problems are. We're like the problem fixers. Um, the long-term measurements the long-term projects, involve the ones that are actually more likely under design. So those are the ones you get in the very beginning. Like some of the long-term projects that I'm working on right now are the new Comcast Innovation Center. So that's going to be the tallest building in Philadelphia. It's like, I don't know how many stories it is. Close to 60. Yeah, 60 stories. So
Wow.
it's actually going to be building outside of Chicago and New York in the United States. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
We're working on that. That's a very important project. That's probably like a four-year project or something like that. Also working on a couple residence halls at University of Pennsylvania. So they've been in design for a while. One's under construction, one's still under design. So where they're renovating or building new, they call them like college residence halls. So not only do they have dorm rooms, but they have like activity areas, music rooms, game rooms, dining areas, everything's in there. It's kind of like a whole area where you can do everything in. So it's kind of like a big living community, really. So we do a couple of those right now. What are you working on?
Pretty much everything you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, elevator noise,
Elevator
chiller noise, emergency generators.
What are your long-term
buildings.
projects? I know you have a couple, right?
Yep, Penn. Let me see.
Well, Penn Presbyterian, the medical center, you should mention that.
Hospital.
Yes,
Hospital.
I checked it on your website. Yes, I saw this one.
Oh yeah, that video we have up there. Yeah,
Yes.
that was one that's working on.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. You're a couple schools too, right?
Yep, a few new schools.
Yeah.
So those are long term.
Yeah, those are, yeah. So anything like usually like bigger projects, like whole building projects that are in design and we start in the beginning, those could last, 2 to 3 years before completion, or more.
Okay, it's very funny to hear you talking about this, because previously in the interview you said like you have every day new inquiries about new projects, and I think since the very beginning of the interview, every project you were talking about was different from the previous one. So it's very interesting to see that people are still caring about acoustics and want to build and to renovate their building to make them good in terms of acoustics. So it's very good for people like me who are studying it and who will come on the market in the years to come, for example.
Yeah, any big project that's getting built, I mean, for the most part, unless it's like a retail project or something, that's the only exception. Like any big building that goes up has, usually we'll have an acoustical AV consultant working on it. Because almost every building has AV in it as well, whether it's digital signage or, public address systems or projection or something like that. So.
Okay. And almost my last question, you just answered a little bit about it. In general, I mean, what are your personal long-term projects, especially for you, Mrs. Target, because Mr. Santucci was just hired about 9 months ago, if I'm right. So what are your long-term projects? Will you stay in the company? Will you evolve in the company? Will you do something else in acoustics? Work on something different? What are your plans for the next 10 years, for example?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I want to actually right now I'm kind of working on bringing in limited partners. Well, I own the company, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So right now that we have like a good base of people, I'm working on getting the company structure so that we can bring on partners into the company. So I mean, and that's actually something that's my near-term focus, is to get that all set up. And then, and eventually I'm still going to stay in the company and basically till I retire, I guess. So I don't ever see myself like retiring 100%, because what would I do? I think I'd be bored if I did. But obviously as I get like much older, kind of phase out a little more, but still stay in, and heck, I don't know, maybe I'll do some more research and stuff like that instead of actually doing work. Leo Baranek just turned 100. Did you know that? Did you see that? I tweeted that. Yeah, he's my hero. Do you know Leo Baranek?
You should.
Look up Leo Baranek.
He's
actually the. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't think I'm not trying out this guy. Just tell me more about him.
Well, he's actually like the father of acoustical consulting in the United States. He's the one that basically invented the profession.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah,
you said.
I mean, he's an amazing fellow. He just turned 100 this month.
Wow.
Still is like, I saw him. Well, I guess the last time I saw him was in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he goes to the Acoustical Society of America meetings, and he still does research in acoustics. He writes books. I mean, he's my hero.
Me too.
He's actually a hero in the profession. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I never heard about him. So
him,
I think I interviewed like 4 or 5 people. I mean, 4 people prior to you, and nobody talked about him. So I will just check on him and see what's his work, because still working in acoustics when you are 100 is like very impressive.
he looks great too.
Wow.
He's like running over the place, and it's like nonstop.
Yeah.
So, anyway. That's what I mean, I don't ever want to like retire. I mean, I think if you retire, then your brain just goes mushy. But anyway. Anyway.
Go on, Tom. I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have a family member named Amélie Blanchard?
Maybe, I mean, not in my close family, but maybe outside. Maybe it's like a very common name in France. So.
Now, I recorded a bunch of television music back in the 80s, and he was the drummer.
Okay.
Blanchard. He played with Renault for about 15 years and did a lot of touring work. And so
I am a drummer as well.
And I was just wondering, he might have been your father.
No, I'm sorry for this, but I'm still a drummer.
I just had to ask because it would have been too coincidental.
Yes.
I would say hi to your dad for me.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So now it's my very last question. It's like for people like me, students and people who want to work abroad, especially in America. If you had like, so you just described your job position earlier in the interview. You talked about the qualities people need to have. If you just have, for example, let's say 3 tips to share with people like me, students who wants to work abroad, who wants to work in acoustic, what would you say?
I would say probably go to an Acoustical Society of America meeting. Do you think that's a good thing? Yeah, because they have these student receptions there. Mm-hmm. And like all the students go and a lot of the consultants go. Actually, the student reception is hosted by National Council of Acoustical Consultants, which is an international organization. Mm-hmm. But you can go to one of those and try and meet people that that work at these other companies. And also, it's good. You could probably get a scholarship to go to the meeting, right? They give away student scholarships. The Acoustical Society of America does. To attend the conferences. So that's one thing. I mean, that's a really good way to meet people, face to face, and try and petition for positions as an intern.
Yeah.
What else? I guess like emailing people, And trying to think how else to.
Well, in France, what they do is they send their candidate to you, to the different consultancies, and they send a letter of motivation. What do they call it?
Letter of motivation?
Yeah,
Well,
and you can do that, but just know that if they're busy and don't have time to think about bringing someone as an intern in, it's not that they don't need you, it's just that they're already
yeah.
crazy.
And we always have an intern here, usually for the most part, a rotating intern. We just had one start today from Drexel University. So he'll be here for 6 months. But yeah, but Drexel has like a program where they call them co-ops. So they go and you can put in a job position and then the students apply for it. But I don't know, you probably do that from your end. But I would just say email the people that you think you potentially might want to do an internship for, particularly around probably the beginning of the year. A lot of people hire summer interns as well.
The seasonal aspect is a little bit different in the United States and in France. Actually, the whole
thing is different.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I mean, I prefer to have an intern for a little more long term because once you train them, they can be up and running for a while. So we like ones that stay for like 6 months or more.
Yes, that's usually what we do in my engineering school. I'm in the second year, and for the students who are in the third year, they do the first 6 months at school, I think, and the next 6 one are in the company. They have to choose their internship, and usually at the end the company hire them because they are trained and they know how the company works. They know how to do it. So
Right.
I think it works in the same way. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if there's one more hint. Yeah, that's probably about it.
Okay, so.
Unless you use contacts you have over here.
Yes, I'm trying to build like a database of contacts to be to contact in the next month to come. So yes, I think you will still hear about me in the month to come, I think.
Okay.
What city are you in?
My city is called Le Mans. It's about 1 hour from Paris, and it's very known for the car race that lasted 24 hours. Maybe you must know it, maybe.
What's it called?
Le Mans.
Yes.
I don't know.
Le Mans. It's like LE space MANS.
Le Mans is a great place because you have the laboratory, L'Homme.
Exactly. Yes, and my school is just beside the laboratory, so all of the people who are searching in doing research in the lab just are giving us courses. So
I highly recommend hanging out there. They're the ones that are willing to bring the reflectivity machine into the laboratory.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
yeah.
Well, Allah is someone who's not retired but really important. For 25 years, he's written extensively on porous media, and he's at that laboratory. It's great, absolutely great.
Okay, so I will tell them that people in Philadelphia still know about us. That's good news for us. Okay, so that's it for me. Basically, I have all of my answers. That was very interesting to hear both of you speaking about your jobs and the differences between France and Europe in general, and work in the US, to see that there are many projects going on in the US and maybe less projects going on in France. If you want to add something, it's your time, like to promote your company, to do. If you want to add something else, you have like 10 minutes. No, I'm just joking. But
Do you want to talk about any of your projects over in France, or?
Well, we might do a proscenium for the Opera on Bastille, and we'll do it from here.
okay. Yes.
Right now we're doing the École Nationale Supérieure d'Art Décoratif. We're doing a little AV center for them. We do lots of those. And that's about it. Otherwise, it's pretty quiet in France. We have maybe to do Xavier Niel's new school called 42.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know about this school. for those who don't know, it's like a revolutionary school launched by like a great tech player. I mean, he created like a phone carrier in France. It's very powerful, and he decided to create like a special school called 42. And so apparently, you will work with them.
Yeah, so I visited it already, and I've worked for Xavier Niel a couple of times already. And so there's maybe the opportunity for us to revamp the acoustics of the school, which is a brand new school where they didn't do anything for the acoustics.
Oh, really?
It's concrete. So.
Yeah, we would like to do some work over there.
Yeah.
You know, once the economy gets back up and running.
Yes, it
that
will.
would ultimately goal
Yeah.
to do some work over in Europe as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So, yeah, between this collaboration that we have, that was the ultimate goal, to work over here and there.
Yep.
Okay, yes. Okay, so that's very interesting to hear about all of this. It's funny to see that you know about my city and you know about Xavier Niel here in the US, so that's funny to hear all of that. Yes, basically it's done for me. If you need to add something, it was a pleasure for me to interview you, and especially Mr. Sansusi, because of his knowledge of France and the US as well. And thank you also for your time. And you know that we have we used to experience some problems, so it was very cool to interview you. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
It was a pleasure,
Yes.
Corentin.
Okay, bye, Corentin.
Goodbye. And for the people who are watching the video, don't forget to click on the link, and you will see the whole article I will publish with the video. Okay, so thank you very much once again, and maybe see you soon, or actually good luck on your projects. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.